Who do you think the worst team in the country is? Today, college football imperialism is going to decide that. And that's because the new twist is if you lose, you stay. How imperialism has always worked is I will spin this wheel to pick a team, and then this wheel will tell us which direction that college is attacking in. So what we have right now is we have Washington State attacking to the west for our first matchup, and that is going to be against rivals Washington, but neither team wants to win this first game. It is actually beneficial for your favorite school to be awful at football for this imperialism, and we'll see which of these two schools is going to be able to make it on to the next round. It's such a weird imperialism to spectate, because if you're rooting for your favorite team, what do you root for? I don't think any school wants to be labeled as the worst in the country, but that title technically comes with winning an imperialism at the same time. Washington is in an awful spot. Being down by 7 with only 10 seconds left on the clock, they're on a 4th and 12. If they don't pick this up, they're going to be staying in this video. And Will Rogers did just enough right there to keep a little bit of hope alive for Washington in pulling off this comeback, but they're about to stay in imperialism. Wait, there's a flag on this play. Washington State just made this Hail Mary manageable, and that's going to give the Huskies a little bit better of a chance because they can reach the end zone with this throw. Will Rogers, all the time in the world, chucks it, and it is going to make it there. Can somebody catch it though? It's not going to be the right team. All right, we had a rivalry for our first matchup. The result is going to leave the Huskies in. And Washington State has successfully proven that they are not the worst team in the country. They deserve to have something go their way. I mean, they lost their entire conference just a year ago. And there's a decent chance that Washington stays in this imperialism for a while because they're so far away from most schools. That was just one result though. We have a long way to go before this video is going to be over. And you might have caught me get a little bit excited there because I saw Kentucky was about to get landed on. Like we do in almost every imperialism, we're going to get matched up against the Cardinals. And I think I want them to win the Governor's Cup instead of losing to Louisville, but we have a decent chance at winning this video. All I'm saying is no matter how it comes, an imperialism win is an imperialism win. I would take it with Kentucky. But since neither offense has had a very successful game, this one is not going to be over as we look at the final minute and a half. Scoring only 15 points isn't too impressive, but the Cardinals have just 9. Tyler Shuck is chucking it down the field, and that was almost brought in. I am so conflicted on what I should be rooting for right now. Let me know in the comments if you want your team to make it far or not. And Louisville is taking the clock under 30 seconds before getting this next snap off. It's 3rd and 2, all the time in the world to get this one out. But they had to burn their final timeout. I gotta say, I have missed filming these imperialism videos. It has been a long time since I dropped one. And that play from the Wildcats might just do it. Louisville doesn't get another snap off. Kentucky's proven they're not the worst team in the country. And with the Wildcats' little bit of success, they are being removed from the map of loser imperialism. The next place in the country this wheel spin is going to take us is gonna be Penn State. And I'm sure they're probably gonna win this game and get out of imperialism. They're playing Temple, and it'd be pretty embarrassing if they couldn't win here. But we'll see what happens. This is now our 3rd straight rivalry. Well, there's no great way to put this if you root for the Nittany Lions. But somehow, with a minute and a half left, you all are trailing by 5 points. I feel like it takes a lot of skill to be struggling in a matchup like this. Drew Aller only has 1 turnover, so it's not like he's playing horribly. But this all comes back to why we love imperialism. Over the course of like the 20 that I think I've filmed, we have seen some pretty crazy results. Nick Singleton breaks the first tackle, and there is still a minute left on the clock for Penn State to get that game-winning touchdown. The good news for both of these teams is no matter what happens here, they're most likely going to have other opportunities to get out, but Penn State just wants to get it over with right now. They're going to go to the end zone, and they're going to fall a yard short. They are. This one's coming down to the final seconds. They have no timeouts, so by the time that they're going to spike it, there's 12 seconds left, and the Owls defense could hold strong here. We know that the Nittany Lions have got to throw the ball. Good man-to-man coverage out there. They have to throw it away. Drew Aller is not happy with himself about that, but I can already see from this alignment that I think Penn State's going to score here, and they did. Tyler Warren saves the day. They're not going to be the worst team in the country, but it should have never been as close as it was in the first place. Final play of the game, Temple isn't going to be able to reach the end zone, though they did come down with that catch almost. And we've actually seen in another imperialism them break free from that catch and score a last-second touchdown. I'm just saying that the farther we get into this video, there could be some crazy stuff that happens. And I am pretty surprised that all 3 of our first games have been as tight as these have been. Depending on who NIU faces, this one could be more of a blowout. And it looks like both Iowa and Northwestern are going to avoid playing as this just sneaks by to attack Wisconsin. This is another pretty lopsided game on paper. And it's not looking great for the Huskies with 2 minutes left. I refuse to say that they're out of it yet though. They're on a 3rd and goal that they are not going to pick up. Instead, they've thrown a pick. And that just seals that the Badgers are going to win. They're going to get out of imperialism, which is what they probably wanted. That's what's going to happen though whenever you you only score 7 points in 4 quarters. And that's going to open up the Huskies to getting attacked by a few more colleges, but not much for the size of territory that they just conquered. They had to have at least just tripled the amount of land that they have. And we'll see where the wheel decides that we're going to be headed now. We're going to Army. They're one of those teams up in the Northeast region that rarely gets attacked or landed on. But here against Rutgers, they have a way to get out pretty early on. Even though the Scarlet Knights have been a bit better in recent memory, they're still known as one of the worst Power 4 teams over the last couple decades. And the Black Knights had a solid season in real life, so I'll be curious to see what happens. It looks like at least one of the military schools doesn't want to be seen as the worst in the country. And the Scarlet Knights aren't technically out of it yet, but settling for a field goal with 25 seconds left doesn't do much. What they really need to do is recover this onside kick, still trailing by 8 points, and Army is going to scoop it up. So that's going to lock in their win against Rutgers. I can't say that I'm too shocked by this, but there's still plenty of other bad schools up here that Rutgers should be able to beat. They just might be waiting a while to get another crack at it, because it takes a while for this wheel to select a school. You might only get landed on a couple of times before we get to the top 10 in an Imperialism, but other times it could hit you over and over. It really is random. We're getting the Holy War. And that reminds me of the Worldwide Imperialism I did last year. I kind of want to do that concept again too. I had a really good time trying to figure out how I was going to link every college to a country around the world. But at least for now, this is the loser Imperialism. And BYU has 36 seconds to score on Utah, or else the Utes are going to be the team that gets out. They don't have any timeouts left, which makes this quite the challenge. And they were able to finally spike the ball, but there was only 15 seconds left by the time that they did that. They're starting to realize they have to go to the end zone. And if they complete a pass anywhere else on the field without getting out of bounds, it's over, so they took another shot. This is probably going to be it right here for the Cougars. 4th and 10. They're going to actually complete it though, and Utah is going to stay in Imperialism because of their defense failing. I would love to know why they decided to press in that scenario instead of having at least some help over top if they were going to do it. Their final pass went really far down the field, but they weren't going to score on that play. BYU is going to get out of Imperialism. The way they were able to pull off that comeback there at the end, they definitely deserve this, and I highly doubt that this wheel is going to land on Utah 2 times in a row. That would be crazy if it did though. It came close. Instead, it's going to land on UCLA, so we're staying out west. And of all the schools for them to attack right here, from the middle of their logo, that is going to run into Arizona State's territory. Considering the Sun Devils made the playoffs this year and almost beat Texas, they're the heavy favorites in this one. And all I'm going to say is UCLA made it look way better in the 4th quarter. At one point, it was 40-7. Great performance out of Sam Levitt. I'm sure he had a great day alongside Cam Scadaboo. And that's going to be another bigger school already exiting, though we knew they weren't going to be competing for being the worst team in the country. It's going to be interesting to see if this turns into the battle of the small schools, or there's still some Power 4 programs remaining, because there's always the chance that they just never get landed on and then they make the top 10 but lose. We cannot stay out of the state of Kentucky though. Western is going to be attacking Indiana, and the Hilltoppers don't have much going in their favor, but somehow their defense overall is higher. I can only guess that that's how they've stayed in this game, because I feel like they shouldn't be competing with the Hoosiers. They've been running clock down with 3 timeouts left. There's only about 20 seconds left, and there was supposed to be around a minute. At least we're still going to get to see the final good plays though. Down by 4, they need a touchdown to win this one. They're going to get the touchdown, and it's looking like Indiana is not going to be able to eliminate themselves. I feel like we haven't seen any great upsets in this video so far, but this would definitely be one of them. 9 seconds for the Hoosiers to respond. They're going to go to the 40. Curtis Rourke has thrown for 344 yards, 4 tutties. So my mind is blown on how Indiana is not able to beat Western Kentucky. This is it though. They're throwing it up. It's a 2v1. And they almost came away with it. They weren't that lucky though. Western Kentucky is going to pull this off. And that means the Hoosiers are still going to be in this Imperialism. They still have a chance to make it all the way to the end. Alongside a lot of these other schools, we have a long way to go in this video. We haven't even eliminated 10 teams yet. This time we're going to be headed over to Eastern Michigan. And if I'm remembering where they're at on the map, I think they're going to play the Wolverines basically no matter what. Never mind. They're going to run into the Spartans instead. One of these 2 green schools is getting out. And of all the teams we've seen so far, the Eagles are one of the lowest overalls. For whatever reason though, that has had 0 impact on this game. And that's because the Eagles are up by 15 points and they're about to score another touchdown. I don't know how they're doing this against the Spartans, but they went out, they played at their best, and they're going to get themselves eliminated. All of these underdogs don't seem to be having too many issues with the Big Ten schools. And that's now Penn State, Rutgers, Indiana, and Michigan State that we saw struggle. The conference has to do better at some point. SMU is who just got picked. And they shouldn't have many problems taking on Sam Houston, who recently moved up to the FBS level. Thinking back on the season, it is kind of of crazy that we got to see teams like the Mustangs and Indiana in the playoffs. And even Boise State and Arizona State too. I just hope that they end up having more success in the future. Not every tournament's gonna have an underdog story. I mean, all the 1 seeds made the Final Four in March Madness this year, but look at this score. SMU's down by 7. They also just used their final timeout. And what is happening? How is Kevin Jennings only put up 10 points against the Bearcats? I thought for sure this was gonna be a blowout. But instead, it's looking like unless they can get 45 yards in the next 8 seconds, that SMU is gonna stay in Imperialism, and this throw was almost caught. Not by them, of course, by Sam Houston. And that corner might regret letting the ball go straight through his hands if they somehow pick this up. He's getting pressured though, and they don't even get a throw out. Sam Houston has done it. They have shocked SMU. And I have no idea what is happening, but this is not how I imagine this Imperialism going. I figured a lot of these smaller school matchups weren't going to be close. They weren't going to be entertaining. But now we have to watch out for them. We'll see who Louisiana ends up playing. It's going to be Houston, so we're pretty much staying in the exact same area. And just looking at these two teams overalls, they're extremely similar. However, I am starting to pick up on a trend, and that's these smaller schools coming out on top. The Ragin' Cajuns just beat Houston by 10, so they have also been able to survive the worst Imperialism. As you can see though, nobody has too large of a territory yet, and that's actually something that you want in this Imperialism, so you have a better chance at getting out. For the first time, Northwestern's gonna have a chance to play. It looks like they're going in the direction of NIU, and that's gonna make the Huskies the first team to get 2 matchups. They couldn't beat Wisconsin, but maybe they can handle Northwestern, except they haven't really played well enough to do that. They would need to find a way to score 10 points in the next 25 seconds. Those completions won't do it. And the Big Ten's starting to get a little bit more redemption with some wins like this. I'm sure NIU is hoping to face anybody other than a Big Ten team at some point. Those are the teams that have kept them in it. But there's a lot of big schools still surrounding them, so they should be fine whenever it comes to not making it to the end. Colorado's also going to have their opportunity to get out right now. And with the arrow pointing up north, that would be against Wyoming. They have a couple top 10 picks on their team. The Cowboys obviously don't. And I am shocked to say that the Cowboys still have an opportunity to beat the Buffaloes despite that. They control their destiny. They could go for the end zone here and then win. They're just going to have to complete more passes like that one right there. It's a little hard to do though when you don't have any timeouts. And on 2nd and 10, Colorado sends 4. That is not enough to get in pressure in time, as Wyoming is going to go to the 25. 23 seconds left on the clock. They're going to have to gain about a yard per second here. Not taking a sack, that's for sure. Instead, they're at the 2. And they were so close to getting the win, but they actually fell short. They're going to have to get up to the line pretty quick and spike this ball. Only 5 seconds left now. I think they're going to be able to get off a play. And if they can pull this off, this entire place is going to go nuts. We'll see what they have drawn up. They are going to have a couple routes that did not get open. Nobody to throw to. And they had such a good effort there to try and take down the Buffaloes after not giving up any points for 3 quarters, but they couldn't do it. Either way, though, pretty thankful for Wyoming. They just gave us one of the most entertaining games that we've had so far. And Wyoming will still have their chances to get out in the future, most likely at least. Georgia Southern's next. They have some big schools around them, but also some easier opponents. But unfortunately, they're not going to get lucky. They're going to have to take on the Gators since that's the closest team to where the arrow is pointing. We'll see if they have what it takes to take down DJ Lagway. But even as a Kentucky fan, I'll admit he's been good as a starter. He was also on fire in this game. Georgia Southern's going to fall by 28 points to the Gators. And even Montrell Johnson Jr. played really well. Florida's been able to get out of this, but will Florida State be able to? Who knows? They had a really rough year. And we are currently looking for the 15th team to survive this Imperialism. Kennesaw State is another team from Georgia, but I think they have easier matchups around them. And I was right about that. They're going to get to face Jacksonville State. Both of these teams moved up to the FBS level in like the last couple of years. And Jacksonville State seems to be having a little bit of an easier time adjusting because they just doubled their score. Kennesaw State will be staying in Imperialism for the time being, taking over a little bit more territory. And I'd argue they have a decent chance at making it all the way to the end with their 60 overall offense. When it comes to Wyoming, by getting landed on, they might be able to get out. But here's the unlucky part of having a lot of open space around you. They're not even going to get to play. If the arrow points to an open state in Imperialism, the school just takes it over. And then we head back to the wheel with them not getting to play anybody until they're landed on again. West Virginia could be getting their moment here though. They're going to be headed to the north. And if they were lucky, they'd get to play Kent State, but instead it's going to be Pittsburgh. You can never go wrong in getting us the backyard brawl though. And this one could be headed to our first overtime. It is all tied up at 17. The Mountaineers are at midfield though. If they get into field goal range, they would be able to end it. And Garrett Green has way too much time back there in the pocket. Handing it off, they're going to break free. They're going to go to the red zone. And Jaheim White might have just ended this one. The only thing keeping the Panthers alive is they still have 3 timeouts. So they might be able to get the ball back. They just wouldn't have much time to retaliate. They kind of just gave up though, letting the clock run down to 6 seconds before they hit this field goal. So I guess they're willing to let West Virginia win the backyard brawl and take their chances that they'll get out later on in Imperialism. The Panthers aren't too concerned, and I probably wouldn't be either if I had Kent State State right next door, who are by far one of the favorites to be there by the end of this Imperialism, but we'll see. There's a lot of time for crazy stuff to happen. We're headed down to Florida, and FAU is going to be attacking the Knights. I've been to somewhere around 10 to 15 college football stadiums, the Bounce House being one of them, and it certainly wasn't the best one or my favorite, but it also wasn't the worst. My experience was a rainy blowout against Oklahoma State, but we did get to storm the field, and fans are not going to be doing that after the Knights take down FAU. With 11 seconds left, I figured this last second drive wasn't going to go too well for the Owls, but we'll see if Cam Fancher can reach the end zone with this Hail Mary. I see no reason why he shouldn't be able to. He had enough time to get the throw off, and UCF swats it away. The Knights are going to make sure that they get out, while FAU is going to have to stay in it for a bit longer. And if you're rooting for Miami, looking at some of the teams that's surrounding them, I'm sure you're not worried about being the worst team. The only thing that's not in their favor is they could go a really long time before they ever get landed on. And then there's teams like Baylor in the middle of everything, so they'll play a lot more. It seems like their first matchup's going to be at Kyle Field against Texas A&M. And so they might not get the one win that they need right here, but they'll have more chances. Well, if the Bears are getting pummeled like this, they might be in this Imperialism longer than I was thinking, especially since before Texas A&M put in their backups, it was 35-0. Like I said though, I'm sure that Baylor is going to get plenty of chances in this video. It's still not even the top 100. And headed back to the wheel, we are going to be headed down to Memphis. I thought it was going to give us Miami, but instead we're going to go over to Tennessee. And where this arrow is going to hit is going to be an extremely close call, but I would say that it's just going to pass up the Hoosiers' territory and attack Missouri instead. You're welcome to disagree with me, but I'm the one that controls these matchups, so there's nothing you can do about it. And with a minute remaining, we have ourselves a really good one. Memphis is trailing by 5, but they're going for the game-leading touchdown. And they're on the 28-yard line, so this is something Seth Hennigan should be able to make happen. 2-yard completions that run off 20 seconds of game time, though, are not how to get that touchdown. He's going to run backwards. Memphis is going to take the sack. And they're lucky they even had timeouts still at their disposal to use. They have one remaining. He is going to hit his receiver for a first. And the Tigers are at the 16. These are exactly the tight matchups that we look for. Seth Hennigan, all the time in the world. I mean, his line is doing him favors. Great speed from that receiver. And the final timeout had a good use. If they run a quick enough play, they basically have 2 shots at the end zone. They don't want to take the hitch route though, because they're probably going to be short. And they had to hit that sooner rather than later if they wanted to win. I don't know what took him so long to throw that, but Missouri got what they're looking for. They've given Memphis a large territory. And with 115 teams remaining, it's looking like Memphis, NIU, and then Wyoming have the largest in the country. Even if the wheel doesn't land on them, it's going to lead to them getting attacked more often, most likely. And Ball State has control of what happens to them. They could put a team out, or they could find themselves getting a lot more territory as they're about to attack Indiana. We already saw that the Hoosiers couldn't beat Western Kentucky, but they took Ball State a little bit more seriously, putting up 45 points, so they were not going to lose again. Curtis Rourke does not want to be associated with winning the worst Imperialism ever, but Ball State might be, since there's a lot of teams in the area they're at. The chance of them getting a lot of games in this is a little bit lower, and Iowa just got passed up, so Iowa State could attack, which means they're going to have no part in this next matchup between the Cyclones and the Cornhuskers. I specifically remember 2 years ago when I did a loser Imperialism, there was a Nebraska fan that commented they were excited for the video because they actually had a chance of winning it. But since then, some stuff has changed for them. The program survived Scott Frost, but they didn't survive against Iowa State, as they're going to lose by 14. They also made it look a lot better at the end by scoring 14 straight points. And if you root for the Cyclones, you can be proud of Rocco Becht for playing this well. He just made sure that your program is not going to be the laughing stock of this video. And some of these masses of land are starting to shape up a little bit more. We're getting some expansion out there. It's starting to get a little bit more interesting. Navy is going to be next. The last time a military school played, they were able to exit this Imperialism. And the midshipmen are going to get their shot against Temple. This is the same Temple team that was seconds away from beating Penn State though. And I think I'm starting to notice a trend out of the Owls. It doesn't matter who they face, they're able to keep it close. They're able to keep it competitive, but they're going to fall short. Because unless they manage to score a touchdown with less than a minute left, no timeouts, they're about to lose. That was a nice little play there. It's just taking them too long to get down the field. And they're going to need to start taking some deeper shots down the field, or they could just throw it straight to Navy and end the game right here. Navy's going to return it. They're going to make it a 2-possession one. And that's how they're going to put Temple to sleep. The Owls never scored a single touchdown though, so it's not like they deserve to win. And I'm not sure taking over a low piece of Maryland is going to do much for them whenever it comes to having a higher chance of getting attacked. It would be kind of funny if the team standing at the end of this video is one that's lost like 10 times. And San Diego State's a team that hasn't played yet, so it can't be them. They are about to take on UCLA though, who's already picked up a loss. And I feel like for the number of teams still on the map, we're getting quite a few repeats. It's given these programs second chances that they did not deserve this soon, but UCLA is messing up their second chance because they were already down by 10. They just threw a pick 6 on the goal line. They're not going to be able to catch this kid. And in just one game, the Aztecs have been able to survive loser Imperialism. The Bruins had home field advantage as well. There is no excuses for that. And just like a couple other schools on this map, they are already a couple losses deep. I will say, with Hawaii in the picture there, it is always interesting to see how far they end up going. And Nebraska's been landed on again, so they're given another opportunity. I can't say that they're going to get to play, though. I think that arrow is just going to hit this open state right here instead. My guess is that South Dakota, and without FCS schools in this Imperialism, it's a wide open state. Connecticut is not, though. UConn is going to be headed in the west direction, and either them or Rutgers is going to get out with this next one. Again, this is a very early second chance for the Scarlet Knights, and they have not been able to put away the Huskies, but they just got a hand on that ball. I think that could have been a touchdown if they didn't turn around in time for that one. And what it sets up is a 4th and inches for UConn. I'm expecting them to hand it off, but Rutgers was too. Well, they didn't score too many points, but they were able to put this game away. And do you know what's funny about this Imperialism? Boston College normally makes it to the end because of their location, but this time if that happens, because nobody attacks them, it's not a good thing. They typically have the best spawn point possible. It looks like FAU was almost given their second opportunity, but instead it's Florida State, and this is where they can redeem themselves for their season. The arrow is just going to avoid Georgia State, putting them up against Troy instead. NEA was way too kind with the roster updates to still have the Seminoles as an 85 overall. I get that there's real players involved, and maybe they don't want to upset them, dropping them down 10-15 overalls, but sometimes they deserve it. And the Trojans just haven't had what it takes to take down Florida State. It's 4th and 8. They're going to have to pick this up, score a touchdown, then recover an onside kick. And that is way too much that needs to go right for them, especially since they just threw it straight to the Seminoles. There you go, Florida State fans. There is a win that you can be proud of. And if some of these Georgia schools want to have a better chance at winning, that's going to help them out a little bit more too. It'll give them some weaker opponents to face off against. We have East Carolina getting this one. And I'm not sure we have seen a single game of football in the state of North Carolina yet. I'm seeing no new territory from any of these schools. East Carolina is going to go up against Duke. And I don't know much about Pirates football, but in the last couple years, they've given us some good games against both North and South Carolina. I don't think they're going to get us that against Duke, though, unless they can find a way to reach the end zone without burning one of their 3 timeouts, and they almost took a sack. We'll see if they can come up with anything. A check down won't do the trick. And timeouts have been used more than I was thinking, so getting in here doesn't do much. When it comes down to an onside kick, odds aren't looking good for your team, especially when you put it all the way at midfield. But I have to give credit to Duke. They took care of business. By the time that you're watching this, they might have been able to win it all in college basketball. And they have taken their name off of the wheel. USC has not yet. They're near UCLA, so we might be seeing the Bruins for another time. Or they could just go for the surprise attack on Hawaii. We'll see if they're prepared. This is actually exactly what the Rainbow Warriors want, because even if they don't beat the Trojans, this would get them on the mainland USA. They'd be in the middle of a bunch of California schools that could attack them, so they just gracefully accepted their loss. They didn't play the best. But like I said, I don't think this is a negative for them. With this extra territory right here, there's a lot of other schools that could end up attacking them. And I think I've decided that the goal is to not be the last team standing. That would be embarrassing. You don't want to win a loser Imperialism, even if it is a win. And there were multiple ways this arrow could have pointed that would have gotten us repeat teams, but instead it's the Tigers and Georgia Tech. Not a single Georgia school has had any luck so far, but with 52 seconds left, the Yellow Jackets are up by 2. And all they have to do is prevent Peyton Thorne from getting Auburn into field goal range, but he just had a completion near midfield. Until that moment, I didn't have much faith in him, but he's going to complete another pass. And the Tigers are going through their timeouts pretty quick. They only need about 15 more yards, though. It's really not that much. He could have stepped up and ran for the first. And that's one change for College Football 26 they need to make to the computer AI. It's going to make it even harder to beat them on Heisman, but that's okay. It's not as bad as it was. Whenever this game first came out, Heisman was horrible. And it looks like they're going to spike the ball with 8 seconds left. They're just going to go for the long field goal to get the win, and it's going to go in. But apparently they hit the kicker as well, and they're just going to decline the penalty. Georgia Tech sent everybody trying to block that kick, and it just didn't work out for them. Which means another football team from the state of Georgia has failed to get out of this loser Imperialism. They might be shooting 0 for 3, but the Bulldogs haven't had to step onto the field yet. Southern Miss hasn't either. And they're about to get their opportunity, headed over to the west. We got 2 bird logos that look extremely similar going head to head. And I know I have a thing for not using the updated Louisiana school logos on the map. Just cry about it in the comments. I like the ones that are on the map the way that it is. With a minute left, Southern Miss just got rocked. And they are down by 4, moving it down the field versus ULM. If they have a 4 and out, though, they're not going to be able to score that touchdown they need. What are these reads? This is making my gameplay look good. field, they're just throwing it straight at them every single time. So the Warhawks have gotten themselves out of Imperialism. I have never seen anything like that. There wasn't even a little bit of hesitancy. Tate Roadmaker just put it right in those windows. And those windows were clearly not there, which is why Southern Miss is still in this. Maybe they'll have better luck next time, even though it's going to be hard to find a weaker opponent than who they just played. And that wheel was this close to landing on Alabama, but instead it's Akron. With how I've positioned their logo, it's going to have them facing off against the Bobcats, not Pittsburgh. And it's a little MAC matchup, getting one of these two schools out early. At the moment, it seems like it is going to be the Bobcats. They have a history of being successful in Imperialism. And I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen that specific video, but it's one of the craziest things you'll ever witness. Here against Akron, though, they are coming close to giving up a touchdown. And with 25 seconds left, the Zips are going to drop back, go to the end zone, and miss. We might be headed to overtime still. Their tight end has it. He holds on. But they better not celebrate too soon. The 2-point conversion makes all of the difference. They have to get this in order to send it to overtime, and they don't. I don't know what their quarterback was thinking there. He didn't even give his team a chance. It's going to be recovered by Ohio. So after all that work, Akron's still going to fall short. They did their best, but sometimes your best just isn't enough to get the job done. And we are getting closer and closer to having a top 100. There's a high chance that by the time we get to that point, your team is still in this Imperialism. And that's because not many schools have taken the field still. We're getting repeat opponents like Akron having to play in back-to-back games. And this time they get to host, but they still only have a 69 overall offense. Like expected, the Zips only put up 14 points. They couldn't take down Cincinnati. And so in just a couple of rounds, they've picked up 2 losses, but just like Pittsburgh, they have Kent State on their border. They aren't on the worst spot in the map, that is for sure. Louisville is going to get this spin. I saw it coming. And all the Kentucky schools could get out pretty early on. It's going to be the battle between the 2 Cardinals to see which one is worse. And before Louisville beats Ball State by 50. I will say that now that I live in Louisville, back in Kentucky again, if Louisville is somehow the last team standing in this video, I will proudly wear a jersey in a video. That felt like a pretty safe bet on my part. But somehow Ball State has the ball only down by 4 with a minute left. They're not going to use their timeout after taking a huge sack though. And that's going to run off so much time that they shouldn't have lost. It took them until there was 20 seconds left to finally use one of their 3 timeouts. But it's going to be 3rd and 23, and I don't think that they're going to have a way to win this game, which is good for me. I don't want to wear a Cardinals jersey. I just don't want to celebrate them getting into the end zone here either. I still proudly rock my Kentucky stuff all across Louisville. But at least when it comes to this video, they have been able to do something right, and Ball State just gets a bit bigger. Now, I'm not sure how true this is, but I heard that place was a party school. Rural Indiana? Don't really see it. But maybe it is, hanging out in the cornfields or something. We have Louisiana Tech getting landed on. And if I'm being transparent, I was trying to change their logo to an older one as well, but I just couldn't find it online. We're probably going to see a lot of the Bulldogs in this video. 69 overall offense taking on Arkansas. And as a 10-point game with a minute and a half left, I'd consider this one already over. But Arkansas could really end it by getting a touchdown here, and they're going to. Jaquindon Jackson fought his way in, putting this one away. And if your favorite college is still out there on the map, congratulations or not congratulations, because they've made it to the top 100 of loser Imperialism. Only one of those teams is going to be standing by the time we get to the end of this video, but there's a chance that it could be yours, and San Jose State's going up north. That puts them in a Bay Area matchup against Stanford. And just like any other rivals in close proximity, these two tend to meet a lot in Imperialism. It works out for Stanford because they normally play pretty well. They just gotta win. And they're gonna survive being the worst team in the country. I still think joining the ACC was super weird. Never gonna get over that, but they did do something right here. And coming up next, we're gonna have Oklahoma State as the first team from Oklahoma playing. They could get matched up against the Sooners or Tulsa or even another school. But it looks like we're gonna get the Bedlam, which is great since they canceled it in real life. There's just been a lot of changes in college football lately that I am scared of how it's going to impact the game like 15 years from now. And do not even get me started on if they try to expand the playoff more than they already have. I just see stuff like wanting to expand the college basketball tournament to 96 teams and hope that not everything has to be decided on because of money. As you can see, when it came to this matchup, Oklahoma punted in the final seconds. They gave up. The Cowboys, as inconsistent as they are, had a good performance here. And so the Sooners are going to get most of the state while needing to figure out how to play a little bit better. It's a video game, so you can't blame all of these losses on injuries. Kansas State is close by too. And this could give them another chance to play, especially if the arrow is pointed at them. This just happened to Akron, now it's happening to Oklahoma. And we'll see what they can do with another opportunity. With a minute left, they're only down by 2, so a field goal wins this for them. If they make this catch, they would be in the perfect position, but they're just going to take it for a touchdown. It was about time that we saw a huge bomb like that one. And does Avery Johnson, Kansas State, have it in them to put up a response? Running straight into a sack's probably not a great great way to open up. But I would argue not using one of your 3 timeouts makes it even worse. I'm sure they will after this completed pass. I hope they realize that they only have 23 seconds now to get into the end zone. And Oklahoma seems to be a little bit smarter. They have all of their corners backed up, so they're not going to be able to beat them deep. The best they're going to be able to do is a Hail Mary. If they make any mistakes, though, before they get one off, they don't have any timeouts left. And that's why it was smart to throw to the sideline. Either way, though, a loss in this game isn't the end of the world. The panic will start to come later on, especially when we get down to that top 50, the top 30, where you could play one game and then not play again all the way until the end. It's swatted away. So the Sooners have done it. They were able to get their redemption. I'm not too surprised by that. EA has been kind, leaving them at a 90 overall. And things just changed pretty quick in the middle part of the map. Now we're headed to Appalachian State. Back in North Carolina, there's a couple teams on their border they don't want to play. And I can guarantee that Tennessee was one of them. It's just a little unlucky, but they might as well get this over with. And this is one of the worst losses we've seen yet. Tennessee put up 52 points. Their freshman quarterback goes for 350 passing yards, 5 tutties. And it would have been cool to see a little bit of chaos there, but it definitely was not happening. I gotta say, Clemson and Georgia have to feel pretty good about their chances of getting out once they're landed on. It just could take a while for that to happen. UNLV headed to the east. That puts them up against Utah, who was incapable of taking down BYU. But now the odds are stacked a little bit more in their favor. With 14 seconds left, they find themselves up by 15. And the Rebels would need to score a touchdown on this play and then have a lot more go right for them. There's the touchdown. I still think we can count them out, but that all depends on this onside kick. And why do they always go to midfield? I've seen some awful attempts today. Normally the computer has some better ones than what we've seen so far. Maybe it'll change. And it needs to. I want to see a comeback that starts because of an onside kick recovery. It has happened before. It's just extremely rare, so it's not going to happen that often. Wyoming getting another opportunity. No matter where this points, I think this is going to decide who is the biggest territory. And if Colorado State can't beat the Cowboys, it could be them. Although the schools are not big, this is a high-stakes matchup, especially since it's the battle for the bronze boot. And unfortunately for Wyoming, their defense did not show up to this game. They decided they wanted to give up a lot of points. But maybe it's just them realizing that they could actually win this Imperialism. They have the most territory in the country, though, which means they're going to get attacked a lot. And at some point, even if they're not trying that much, they're bound to win a game. When you zoom out and take a look at them, though, there really aren't that many teams bordering them. And I feel like Texas is a state that we haven't gotten that much action in for how many teams there are. Texas has set themselves up for an easy out, though. They just have to beat the Roadrunners in their dome. And that's not going to be an issue for the Longhorns. It is impossible to score 12 points on one play, but even if you could, UTSA couldn't. And Texas only played well in the second quarter. Besides that, they actually struggled against the Roadrunners. It wasn't their best showing, but they didn't need to have their best showing. They just had to find a way to win, like some of these other schools. New Mexico or New Mexico State. We're getting action in the state either way. They might even end up playing each other depending on where this wheel lands. But it turns out the Lobos are headed over to Texas Tech instead. It's another opportunity for a bigger Texas school to make their exit. And sure enough, they won this one 31-13. New Mexico just couldn't keep up. That would have been asking a lot out of them, though. They were the underdogs going into that game. And I feel like it's been a while since we've gotten ourselves a last-second thriller. Nebraska might finally be getting what they've been waiting on, though. And I was going to say an opportunity to get out, but instead it's going to be more land. There's been some pretty sizable changes to the map recently. We'll see all of it after we go through a couple more games. And that was so close to landing on the Cornhuskers 2 times in a row. It's just going to give us an in-state matchup between UNLV and Nevada instead. And only one of them can win the battle for Nevada. With a minute and a half left, I think we've gotten ourselves a good one finally. And that is because the Wolfpack are on the 1-yard line. It's 1st and goal, though if they take a sack here, they're losing a lot. They are also going to need a 2-point conversion. But if they're smart, by saving all 3 of their timeouts, they could get the ball back if they failed to get the 2-point conversion. They just have to get into the end zone first, and they do. They really can't celebrate anything yet, though. And that's because this is what matters the most, where they throw it and it's brought in. The pressure has been placed on UNLV. Their lead was even larger than this in the 4th quarter, and they have happened to choke it, but they have 3 timeouts. They just decided they'd rather take it to overtime, though. And on the first play, a little play action from Nevada, they have all the momentum going their way. But Brendan Lewis has thrown 3 interceptions. I wouldn't exactly be trusting him to air it out, which is why they've had him keep it on the ground on 2nd and goal. And they might just have to settle for a field goal, except they make the catch. Is UNLV going to have what it takes to respond? That is the real question. On a 2nd and 10, they're able to find an open receiver. And I think it is pretty obvious that the touchdown is inevitable. They could have spiced things up by going for 2 at least, but they decided to be boring. And I think since you're forced to go for the 2-point conversion after you score a touchdown in 2nd OT, you should just get the attempt out of the way while you can. UNLV might not reach the end zone, though. It's 3rd and goal, and Ricky White does it again. He is single-handedly keeping them in this. And if there is anybody you needed to guard on this 2-point conversion, I'd say it's him, they're not getting the jet touch pass. How do you have 2 running backs there to block and still not pick that up? Well, now we know what it's going to take for Nevada to win this one. Did he just try to truck him? I'm sorry, but Brendan Lewis, that's not a winning battle for you right there. It takes a lot of guts on a quarterback to look at a defensive lineman and try to run through it. No matter what, 2-point conversions are deciding this game. I just want to see it go on for longer. I want the chaos. I want the storylines. And on 3rd and 8, they can't make it. If they can't convert here, that kid might be starting a dry streak after this game. Brendan Lewis is gonna find him for just enough though. And a couple plays later, they have moved nowhere else on the field. They haven't gained yards, they haven't lost yards. And that's not a touchdown. Nevada has figured it out on 4th down before though. He just had no time. And we watched all of that game for it to end that way. No alternating 2-point conversions for us. Just more land for the Wolfpack. And we'll do one more spin on the wheel before we get another big look at the United States. You cannot make this up. Nevada has another opportunity. And this time, it's going to be against Utah State. They better not find a way to mess this one up too. And I don't even know what to say about this result. At least they never gave their fans any hope. 44-0 is awful. Nevada football is also awful. And between them and Wyoming, one of those 2 Mountain West schools have got to make it to the end. With how much the wheel seems to love them, they might run into each other sometime in the near future too. And Kent State has finally been landed on, the worst team in the country. Either them or Akron is about to get out. And this is exactly what the Zips have been waiting for. However, Kent State took this opportunity to embarrass their rivals, winning the battle for the wagon wheel 40-7. I mean, it couldn't have been any bigger of a difference. And that is not a good look for the Zips. With teams like Ohio State and Pittsburgh around them, they could be in this for a long time. They got gifted an opportunity on a silver platter and just threw it away. Georgia Southern's getting another opportunity too. But maybe this one will be against somebody that isn't as good. Well, I thought we were going to get a Georgia matchup, but this is just going to hit South Carolina, miss the Bulldogs territory. And it is a little bit easier for them to play South Carolina instead of Georgia. But either way, they probably weren't going to come out on top. After getting that double overtime game, this is our 3rd straight blowout. And I was enjoying the close games a lot more, of course, like anybody else would. South Alabama gets their first opportunity. What will they do with it? We're about to find out. I can't remember who is touching them, but having to play against the Crimson Tide is not what they could have wanted. I guess this is just going to get rid of another school that we know probably won't be there at the end. And I think we've seen South Alabama make this competitive before, but they couldn't in this one. Jalen Milroe didn't want to be in this Imperialism for any longer. And this little change isn't going to affect the map too much. Zooming out though, a lot of the congestion is still up there in Ohio, Michigan, Indiana. We also have it over in the Carolinas and Virginia. And that's how it normally plays out. There's just a lot of schools in that region where there's not as many out in New Mexico. It was pretty hard to tell there, but it was touching New Mexico State. And either way, both of these schools are about to play. The last time that the Lobos got to, they got blown out by Texas Tech. And they actually have a lead with 56 seconds left. New Mexico State could change that though if they get into field goal range. The only issue is they have no timeouts. By the time they're getting their next snap off after spiking the ball, there's just 30 seconds left. And on 4th and 4, New Mexico has dialed in some pressure, but they forgot to guard the tight end. Surely New Mexico State can get up to the line in time to spike this ball and attempt their field goal. And assuming this goes in, which they normally do on this game, we're going to overtime. The last time this happened, we didn't make it to the alternating 2-point conversions. And on New Mexico's first drive, they are going to immediately turn the ball over, ruining their chances. The Aggies are not settling for a field goal though, which is so odd to me. They're going for the touchdown. And I don't understand this method, but if they're able to scramble in, eventually they're gonna get it. The Rio Grande rivalry goes to New Mexico State. They're able to escape Imperialism. And unfortunately for the Lobos, their territory is about to get even larger with less small schools surrounding them. They could still run into UTEP or Air Force, but they also have UCLA and Arizona on the border. And I was afraid that we would never get up to this Northeast region. I think you can see why Boston College always makes it so far. UMass is going to be attacking UConn. And back when I did this on NCAA Football 14, neither of these teams were in the college football revamp mod, so no one was up there. We would have been better off without getting this football game though. UConn destroyed UMass. And look at the Huskies making some progress up there. They can't be considered as the worst team in the country. I think it's a massive victory for them that they have already been able to get out of loser Imperialism. And there were still quite a few teams left in Tennessee. But after this, there could be one less. It could also be a moment that a Georgia school finally picks up a win. And I just can't believe how bad this game has been. Neither team has had too much success offensively. It is currently 10-9. Bryson can't escape. But Kennesaw State's not in a terrible terrible spot. All they have to do is kick a field goal and they're going to win. For this game's range, they need about 10 more yards. That drag is going to get them basically all of it. And it looks like they've run up to the line to spike the ball. At that point, just hand it off for something. You only need 1 more yard for the first down. That's not completed. And I'm not sure what they're going to do on 4th and 1. It might not even make sense to run the ball into that front. Plus, they'd have to use their final timeout, but they just tried it. They break a tackle, and are they in field goal range? I really have no clue. It depends on how good their kicker is. And I guess they're going to believe in him from 56 yards out. Computer kickers on this game are so good. Middle Tennessee State is going to need a miracle in these final few seconds. They're not getting it. And their final Hail Mary to try and save themselves, to try and get out of Imperialism, is not coming close to the end zone, but at least they caught it. There it is. The first team from Georgia has won. And it was not the Bulldogs. It was not Georgia Tech. It was Kennesaw State. Now we're going to have to find another state to pick on that hasn't been able to get a single win. And that state's going to be either Mississippi or Virginia, but Virginia schools haven't gotten a chance to play. There's 5 of them too, which makes that even crazier. Miami got lucky. They knew they were going to need to get landed on to escape early on, and they did, playing FIU. They get to go put on a show in Pitbull Stadium. And I cannot believe I'm saying this, but the Hurricanes are losing with a minute left. That third down completion is going to help them, but they still have to get a field goal, and we've seen that happen recently. Is FIU's defense going to be the one to stop that trend getting a stop? I don't really see that. But Cam Ward has not had himself a good game. He's just gotten a few good passes now in a row. I think it's starting to set in that FIU's given up too many yards in the last few plays. And with 15 seconds left on the clock, Miami is going to take their lead. Never mind, it didn't go in. I thought it did. That was a gimme, and this is not the first time Miami's done this in an Imperialism. It's still just mind-blowing though. This is the first field goal miss we've seen in this entire video. And this is the exact opposite of what the Hurricanes needed. They had it. It was about time that we got some chaos back into Imperialism though. I will happily take that. And maybe this next game could be an upset as well. It's going to be between LSU and whoever is going to be closest to them, pointing in the west direction, which is Houston, and they've already struggled in one game. Most likely they're about to struggle in another, but to my surprise, they came out very strong against the Tigers. Unless LSU has a way to score 16 points in 50 seconds, this one's over. And I just can't believe the Tigers lost like that. They will have more opportunities though, especially since Tulane can't go anywhere without playing them first. And the wheel could land on them again as well. It is going to UTSA. The only opponent the Roadrunners have had so far is Texas. They weren't supposed to win. And I can't say that they're supposed to beat TCU either. Even though they're near the bottom of the map, they're lucky to have a lot of Texas schools around them. And UTSA might be able to get out with this matchup. They currently have the Horned Frogs on a 3rd and 10, up by 7, where they are not going to give up that pass. And this is the position you want to find yourselves in. On 4th down, though, TCU moves the chains. They're staying out there in 5 wide. Somebody's going to be open. They just need to put the ball in the right spot. And that's what they've done right here, as we're getting closer to an overtime. Their defense is still going to have to make a stand. And I think UTSA is just going to try and run out the clock, take it to overtime, but they're actually getting a really big run here. That puts them at the 40. Getting in field goal range is a realistic possibility. That doesn't help. And I can't believe they've let the clock run down to 23 seconds left before going for a huge pass down the field that was almost brought in. Well, they don't have much more of a chance to get there now. This does help though. And Owen McCown has almost set them up. It is hard to believe what we're seeing right now though. They just attempted a 60-yard field goal and hit it with ease. And TCU better find a way to score on this final play, or else this one is done. That really shows though how rare it was for that Miami kicker to miss the close attempt that he had, because we have kickers casually hitting from 60 for much smaller programs. I am starting to notice another trend though. The purple schools on the map are not having much success, and Rice is in a position where they could run into either one of them. That did not happen though. This is directing them up towards Baylor. So we're getting our 3rd straight game in the state of Texas. Luckily for us, it has come down to the wire, and Rice could still pull this off. They're down by 6 with the ball, less than a minute left, and they've got to be able to get some big plays going here. It looks like scrambling might be their best option. EJ Warner decided he just wanted to take off there, check down for the first, and that's going to get the clock down to just 23 seconds left. He is facing pressure, but he is going to do what he does once again. How much has that really mattered? I'm not sure. Those 5 yards don't get them much, and he can't be happy with himself for that last throw. It is 4th and 6. The game is on the line. We know that they need this to go well. He still got the pass out. It's still caught, but with no timeouts left and the clock running on this screen, they're not going to get off another snap. It's a shame it has to be that way, but Baylor wins, and we never got to see one final Hail Mary attempt out of the Owls. All of these territories are really starting to expand though, and by now, if your favorite school still hasn't had to play in a game, game, that's a pretty low chance of that happening. There might be like 25 that haven't been landed on yet. Boston College did get it though. And this is exactly why they're probably going to make it to the end. The arrow's pointed up here, so they have to go take the next territory. Normally, it's a good thing to not get landed on much in Imperialism, but using loser Imperialism, everything has flipped. And no matter where this arrow points, since you have to go by land, Tulane's got to attack LSU. They always start in this unfortunate spot with it headed over in this direction, going by land. The only way is through their territory. And headed into Death Valley, the Green Wave better make zero mistakes. Something just doesn't seem to be clicking right for LSU though, because in the final 45 seconds, they've only scored 9 points. They still haven't reached the end zone, and they're not even using a timeout, which they really need to. There's no point in saving all three of them if there's only 12 seconds left by the time you get into the end zone. And I guess the onside kick could go in their favor. It skipped right over one of the players' heads, but they still scooped it up. This is one of those rare times where Tulane beats LSU in Imperialism. And if you're rooting for the Tigers, I wouldn't get worried yet, because look at some of the other teams that are still surrounding them. Eventually, they are bound to win a game. We will see if Oregon can win their first one. And I'm pretty sure nobody from their state has gotten onto the field yet. With the arrow going in this direction, though, they are both about to play. And the last time we saw an in-state matchup up in the Northwest region, the smaller school won. This time, though, Oregon took care of business. They got their win. And for one of the first times in Imperialism, the Beavers get to take over the entire state of Oregon. I like this version so far. We're going to see a lot of schools that normally wouldn't make it far have a chance to make deep runs. And Mississippi State is a perfect example of that. They're one of the worst teams in the SEC. But that could keep them in this for a while. They just have to play Southern Miss. The Golden Eagles have not had that much hope so far, though. And I am not surprised this is another low-scoring game. One thing to keep an eye on, even though Southern Miss has the ball, is they have no timeouts left. So if they're going to stop the clock, they need to try and get out of bounds. And that's exactly what they just did. From what we've seen, this might be enough for the Golden Eagles to kick a field goal, but they take a sack. And you can tell that all their fans are super annoyed. There's no shot that they can hit a field goal from here. And so unless they can find a way to get out of bounds fast and pick up like 10 yards, they're just going to have to go for a Hail Mary, and that is not going to work out. I can't even say I'm surprised though. Southern Miss found a way to lose. And that's going to give them some more land, but this could just be the start of them conquering a lot. Recently, we've gotten a lot of action going on in the middle south part of the US. And I think Tulsa's near that region as well, being in Oklahoma. So we're staying around there, and with the arrow pointing straight to the east, it's another Louisiana school that has to play. They are getting all of the action at the moment. And are the Bulldogs ever going to show up for one of these games? They just got destroyed again. If you don't want your favorite team to make it far in this video, you better hope that they run into Louisiana Tech. And they're currently touching 7 different schools, but only a few of them can actually attack them. The reason for that is I don't adjust where the logos are after teams take over more territory. It would just take a lot longer. And I think there's something to be said about leaving the team logo at their starting location. We're getting back to Ball State having another opportunity though, with Miami, Ohio attacking them. And apparently this is considered the Redbird rivalry. You learn something new in every single Imperialism video. As for the actual game, it should have a pretty good finish. And that's because Ball State has a chance to get out of Imperialism if they can reach the end zone. I would just assume that they'd go for the 2-point conversion if they're able to make it there. And with 40 seconds remaining, just crossing midfield, they're going to need some bigger gains. They only have 1 timeout remaining now. It looks like they're about to get a sack. And on 2nd and 10, with all the time in the world, they're going to throw it straight to 2 players. That's the type of read I would be making. 4 verticals, you're going to take the tight end coming across on the drag, and the final timeout has been used. That's why I'm a little surprised Ball State is coming out in goal line formation on 4th and 2. But you know what? That explains why they're still in this video. All that's going to do for them is get them a little bit more territory. It doesn't change anything too drastically. And that last result is actually going to get us to 75 teams. So if your team is still on this wheel, they've made the top 75. Central Michigan, of course, is one of those. They're up pretty far north. And what they've done is given Michigan State another chance to win. We saw the Spartans struggle against Eastern Michigan. And I can't believe it, but with a minute left, they are also trailing to Central Michigan. Now, freshman Nick Marsh catching this touchdown gives them an opportunity to tie it up. But they have to be able to convert on this 2-point conversion that they're taking a sack on. There is no way that they are about to lose to another directional school from Michigan. They still have all 3 of their timeouts. But they better stop the run and also make them lose some yards. We know that they can hit field goals from pretty deep whenever we're watching, though they're just going to get the first. And Central Michigan has come away with the win. I don't know what's going on with Michigan State. I know they weren't the best this past year, but I also feel like they weren't that bad. And with their location on the map, it could be a long time before we see them play again. Nebraska's been very fortunate though with the amount of times the wheels landed on them. And either them or Minnesota is about to be one of the biggest territories. There's really no telling which of these teams is going to win this rivalry. And Nebraska decided that their offense just wasn't going to show up for this game. They were somehow only able to score 7 points on the Gophers. That's just not going to get it done. And the 2 biggest pieces of land at the moment between Wyoming and Nebraska are right next to each other. I feel like there's a pretty high chance that those two schools are going to end up facing each other. And Arizona's getting the next opportunity on the wheel headed to the southwest. This is the second school that has attacked Hawaii, and it didn't go great for the Rainbow Warriors the last time that happened. USC was simply too good for them, and so was Arizona. But it all comes back to not being able to stop one or two players. That guy isn't even Arizona's best receiver, but Hawaii let him score 4 touchdowns. And that extra bit of land is just going to increase the chance of them being attacked, especially by UCLA. Now, we have already seen East Carolina lose one game to Duke, but the real question is, are they going to let that happen against North Carolina as well? I feel like they'll be able to keep this one pretty competitive. But unfortunately for East Carolina, just like the last time, they find themselves down by 10 points near the end, so they were not able to pull it off. This pass isn't working, but they seem to be good enough to beat a smaller school if they get matched up against one. They're just waiting for that moment. They literally share a border with Old Dominion, and maybe of the 71 teams left on this wheel, the wheel will select them. Instead, it's going to be Marshall. They are the last team standing from West Virginia, and they're going to be the reason the first team from Virginia gets to actually play. For having 5 teams, that state's made it a long time without getting any football, and they showed up to play. Virginia Tech dropped 45 points on Marshall. Kyron Drones did not want to be in loser imperialism for long, but if he won player of the game with only 2 touchdowns, I have no idea who accounted for all of those points. With the recent wheel spins, we have seen a couple of the ACC schools be able to get out, and now UTEP is getting that opportunity for the first time. With the arrow pointed out in this direction, they have nowhere to attack besides Hawaii, and if the Rainbow Warriors can't win this one, they're going to have different spots of land all over the US. Apparently, Hawaii got sick of losing because they just beat the Miners by 24, and that's going to really alter the map. There are just orange plots of land about everywhere. You would think the odds of UTEP getting attacked again would be extremely high with all of that, but there's only 4 schools touching their territory, and that could make it really hard on them for them to have more chances to get wins. Ohio State should be able to handle business with whoever they're facing though, and that opponent is going to be Bowling Green. This is one of the more lopsided matchups that we've had, and surprisingly, it only resulted in the Buckeyes scoring 24. The national champions still got their win, but that could have been far more embarrassing than that. And Bowling Green is near Ball State on the map, so if they play again, maybe they will be able to pick up that win. With that spin, Georgia State's been gifted their first chance to get off this map, and if they're going to do it, all they have to do is take down Troy. Going into this matchup, the Panthers are 2 overalls better than the Trojans, and Troy only kicking field goals throughout this entire game did not help them at all because they got blown out. Not a great showing from the Trojans in a game that they could have been able to win, but it happens. They'll still have more opportunities most likely. Oregon State is getting another. They're coming off of their loss to the Ducks, but that was a really hard matchup. This time they get to play Cal. It's not as tough, but going into it, they are still the underdog. What's really going to be interesting is how the Golden Bears handle this final 25 seconds, and that's because they're only about 15 yards away from being in field goal range, but they have no timeouts. Making that catch there's the last thing they needed, and I wonder if they're even going to get up to the line in time to spike the ball and then have a chance at the Hail Mary. 1 second left. I mean, their odds of winning this are not high, but if your team's going to get in that position, you want them to at least have this one last opportunity. The throw is up. It looks like it is going to be far enough, but too far. Oregon State's been able to escape. That's a pretty big win for them, and the only team up in this area of the Northwest that still hasn't gotten to play is Boise State. It's less likely a lot of these teams get those opportunities too, since there's so few colleges that it could land on. And just like that, we are headed back down to the southeast where UAB is. They're going to have to play Ole Miss, which is not good news for them, especially since they have to do it on the road. The Blazers didn't score a single point until the 4th quarter. That tells you how this one went. But what did you expect? They weren't going to stop Jackson Dart. As less and less of these bigger programs are on the map though, it will get easier for the smaller schools. And I really have no guess at who's going to be the final team standing by the end of this video. What I could tell you is it won't be Clemson, especially since they're getting to attack. And it looks like they're going to be going down to Georgia Southern. Since we've had a lot of blowouts recently, it'd be cool if this one was competitive. But that just didn't happen. Clemson dropped 45 points on Georgia Southern's head. And it's just another bigger program that probably wasn't going to finish as the worst team in the country. Their roster is simply too good on paper to lose like 10 games they shouldn't. For something like that to happen, it would take a lot of fluky stuff occurring. And Michigan's next. They have not had to play yet, but I have a feeling that they're going to get out against Toledo. If there was a MAC school that could pull this off though, it would be the Rockets. And I still have a little faith that they can do it, but they're going to have to get into the end zone right here. That touchdown helps them out a bunch. They have 3 timeouts still. But are they going to be able to get this onside kick? Michigan picks it up, and they're going to have to use their 3 timeouts. In order to get the ball back though, they have to stop cover athlete Donovan Edwards, who gets nothing here. And for this brief moment in time, Michigan is out of field goal range, but now they're going to be in it. That means unless they lost like 5 yards on this carry, they would have been able to end it either way. And there it is. The Wolverines have won their first game in loser imperialism. Unlike Michigan State, they have been able to actually get off of the map. And with around like 63 teams left, we've been past the halfway point of this video. Everything's really really starting to shape up. It could be a long time before teams get opportunities to win again. And James Madison is just getting their first opportunity, headed to the southeast. Their opponent's going to be Liberty, who's had some success, but so is James Madison. Both of these teams transitioned to the FBS level extremely well. The Dukes did not handle themselves that well in this game though. They couldn't stop Liberty. And Caden Salter has made sure that the Flames aren't going to be in this any longer. I can't say that that result was too surprising to me. Liberty was an 84 overall team, and our next one playing is Wake Forest. The Virginia, North Carolina schools are starting to get some opportunities. And James Madison was actually really close to having to play again, but this is attacking East Carolina instead. The Pirates have already lost a couple games in this Imperialism, and I guess they got sick of that happening because they just blew out Wake Forest. There was nothing close about this game, but that's why I keep saying that you want your favorite team to get multiple opportunities because eventually they're most likely going to win. What's crazy is there's still probably 20, 30 teams on this map that haven't played in a game. And then there's programs like Georgia Southern that have gotten a ton of opportunities. I can't imagine they do anything with this one though either. They're about to play the Bulldogs, and they should feel pretty confident going into this one. To my surprise though, up until the fourth quarter, it was actually a tight matchup. And then Carson Beck decided to take over. We can just add that game to the list of blowouts that we've gotten in this loser Imperialism. And Georgia Southern is starting to really pick up a lot of territory. Southern Miss, we know they have some. They haven't been able to get off of the map yet either, and they're going to attack to the northeast. That puts them up against South Alabama. This one should be a good game. And I've yet to see one of those today, which is why I'm hopeful. At the moment, it's looking like Southern Miss could get out here, but they are going to have to prevent the Jaguars from getting into field goal range, and Gio Lopez almost had someone. That was a hot pass, but his receiver took a huge hit, so you can't expect him to hang on to the ball. Now he's taking a sack, and the Southern Miss defense might actually be locking up here. We know that their offense is not clutch, but maybe their defense will be once again running for his life. And on 4th and 20, they're going to have to at least get a throw off this time. It looks like they're going to, but it was swatted away. I wasn't sure if we'd see the day, but Southern Miss went on the road. They got a win. And because of it, they are no longer going to be a part of this video. Just taking a look around the country, Miami, LSU, and Notre Dame are probably the 3 biggest programs still in it. And there's no telling when they're going to be able to get out. We're going to UTEP, who has a lot of territory. I guess they're just going to get a chance to get even more. But there's also the possibility that New Mexico's about to get all of it. It'll really just depend who the bigger loser is. And it seems like it is going to be the Miners. They're down by 6 with 1:15 left, though that was a good completion. Their quarterback's just thrown 4 interceptions. He has definitely been the issue for them. On 3rd and inches, he almost turned it over. And I don't know if they're going to run or pass to try and move the chains. It looks like the handoff is going to get them just enough. They also get out of bounds. UTEP still has 40 seconds left to get their game-winning touchdown. A lot of time in the pocket, scrambling for nothing. And then burning their final timeout just doesn't seem like it was worth it for 3 yards, but that was a good one. They were able to get out of bounds, get to the 30-yard line. I don't know what he's doing. Skylar Locklear is very inconsistent. It is why he has been able to turn it over so many times, and they're inside the red zone. Before spiking the ball as well, they had a flag, which is going to be against New Mexico. The offsides puts them a little bit closer to the end zone. They have 2 chances to get in. The first one doesn't work. It all comes down to this now. Will UTEP clutch up? No, it's going to be his 5th interception. New Mexico gets the win that they are looking for instead. It's all because of their defense. And I think that you could easily argue that UTEP's quarterback was actually the player of the game for them. The Miners are looking like a clear favorite out west to make it to the end of this video. And it's been quite a while since we have seen anything out of Memphis. They're most likely about to get out here playing against the Blazers. And this turns out to be a rivalry, the Battle of the Bones. Cool trophy, no idea why it's called this. Here's something I was not expecting though. Memphis to be losing as we enter the final minute. That's a great completion. But they're still trailing by 5 with only 1 timeout left. Seth Hennigan is going to have to make stuff happen for them, and he is. We'll see if he can continue to keep this up. I have a feeling he will, but instead he just turns it over, and the Tigers are going to fall to the Blazers, gaining more territory. They couldn't win this rivalry on the road, and I feel like there's already so many blue teams in this region, they just can't get out. There's lots of losing going on that side of things. Fresno State is going to get their chance. I'm not sure if they've even gotten one in this video yet, and all they have to do is take down the Wolfpack, who've lost multiple games. Going into it, they clearly have an advantage on both offense and defense, but they're trailing with a minute remaining. Now, there is a positive. They're on the 3-yard line, so they shouldn't have too many issues getting into the end zone, which they do, but they also probably need to get the 2-point conversion. Without it, Nevada could win on just a field goal. Mikey Keene is going to step up, make sure they pick it up. And that puts the pressure on Brendan Lewis and the Wolfpack to start making some stuff happen quick. They need to get in field goal range. At the bare minimum, a touchdown would be nicer. And on 3rd and 2, he is going to throw it to the same spot. This is not the best decision making I've ever seen. The run was a great call though. And they've moved the chains. They've put themselves in a decent position. They're going to complete another pass. And so they are setting themselves up to go to overtime against Fresno State, especially now. We can only assume though that if this play doesn't go the way that they want it to, they're just going to settle for their field goal. He gets the throw out. And it's a good thing that he did, or else I'm not sure they would have had this chance. They still have to make something happen in overtime though. On 3rd and 6, Brendan Lewis is making the play. And he has saved his team, throwing it now to the 2. He knows exactly what it's like to lose in overtime because they lost that one to UNLV early on. So we will see if he clutches up on 3rd and goal, which he did. The problem was his tight end didn't. He just failed to make the catch, and then his coaches decided to kick it on the 1-yard line. Fresno State now wins it with a touchdown. We'll see if they're aggressive or passive. And it seems like running is what they're going to continue to go with. I mean, they have no reason to pass the ball until now. It's never great to be losing yards, and they went with the same run play twice. That was bold. This is where I hope they get aggressive though. If they don't get this 3rd and 2, I wanted to see them go for it. But none of that's going to matter anyway. They just won the game with that touchdown. Mikey Keene made sure that he handled business. And to have 2 overtime losses keeping you in this is just brutal for Nevada. They have failed to show up though whenever they needed to. That is their fault. And Maryland hasn't had the chance to show up yet until now. They're in an interesting spot. They're going to be playing Temple. And the Owls already lost to one team from the state of Maryland. I will say, playing against the Terrapins, the Owls looked awful. They were only able to score points in the 4th. And we might need to keep them as another favorite that could be in this all the way until the end. They are pretty fortunate that there are a lot of other smaller schools that are still surrounding them. But the wheel might not pick them for a long time, like Vandy just got their first opportunity. It's going to be against Middle Tennessee State, so I think they can handle it. And either way, a team from the state of Tennessee is about to get out. As we approach the final 45 seconds though, I can say that this is not how I thought this game would go. Vanderbilt is refusing to use any of their timeouts. And they're trailing by 8 points, which makes no sense at all. Diego Pavia finally called one, but they have to get 30 yards in a very short time frame, and that was almost there. That pass just needed a little bit more air underneath it. That's what he's going for here, but there's a safety back to help. And apparently it was 4th and 3. Middle Tennessee State takes a knee. They get their win at home, and they are going to snap the streak of all the blue schools in this region not being able to win. Vanderbilt and LSU are the only 2 SEC schools still in this, and I can only say that I am surprised by one of those. SMU's another team that I cannot believe is still in it, but they might have gotten the perfect chance to get out facing off against Rice. I don't know why it's called a battle for the Mayor's Cup. I didn't think they were in the same city. And the Mustangs happened to play exactly how I thought they would, destroying Rice. Holding them to just 3 points is what they really needed. And that's one less team from the state of Texas, but there are still plenty of them left. Nebraska is also still on the map. They have a chance to get off though, and that's by playing Wyoming. This is for the most territory in the country. The loser of this one's about to have a ton of land, and Wyoming might not be out of it with 2 minutes left. They find themselves on a 3rd and 10 though, inside the 20 that they are going to score a touchdown on, and they just got it back within 3 points. They will need to be able to stop the Cornhuskers from running the football though, and this is not a good start. Luckily, there's enough time remaining where they could still clutch up, but Dante Dodal is an extremely good runner, and on 3rd and 5, Nebraska's throwing it. They are going to convert. That is what they needed to win this game, to survive against Wyoming. And for a split second, I thought the Cowboys were about to get the ball back, but they couldn't pull it off. Taking a look at the entire United States, Nevada and UTEP are the next 2 biggest territories behind the Cowboys, and there is a lot of land that is getting expanded out west. Purdue has not had anything happen yet. They're one of those teams that just flew under the radar, could make it to the end, or they could get an easy out against Ball State and not have to worry about it. We've already seen the Cardinals lose plenty of times with their 66 overall defense. That defense has somehow kept Ball State in it though in the final minute, and they're on a 3rd and 10, but they still have 2 timeouts left. This is going to take them past midfield. They're going to go all the way to the end zone as their tight end somehow got out of there untouched. We are witnessing a Purdue collapse at the moment, and we'll see if Hudson Card is able to get them in field goal range to respond. That would have helped them a lot if they just made that catch. Instead, Ball State is going to pick him off. They're about to score another touchdown, and the Cardinals are about to get out of loser imperialism. I mean, he could redeem himself in the final 45 seconds, but it looks like he's about to take a sack. And Purdue never called a timeout, so they've let it get super low. There's only 13 seconds remaining. They're going to be in a position where they're going to have to chuck up a couple of Hail Marys, or they could just throw another pick six What is happening here at Ball State Stadium? Purdue has choked 21 points in like the last minute. And you know what? If you lose to Ball State like that, you deserve to be in the running for the worst team in the country. That might be the most surprising result I've seen throughout this entire video. I know Purdue's not great at football, but they just crumbled against Ball State of all teams. And Air Force is going to be attacking to the south. This is going to give UTEP another opportunity to just get out. And I kind of like their odds facing off against a 66 overall offense. They're going to have to figure out how to stop that offense though in the final 45 seconds because Air Force, trailing by 5, has moved it down into the red zone. And I'm not sure that pass ever stood a chance at getting them in. On 2nd and 10, a little check down, they're going to step out of bounds, and the Miners are one step closer to winning. I think it's pretty cool how they have their stadium built into the mountains. On 3rd and 8, John Bushka should try to run. He can. And this is it. I think this is a crazy formation for trying to pick up a 4th and 9. We're going to see if they can fight for it though. And they get enough. However, that was not enough to score a touchdown. They are on the 1-yard line and they are passing. They're not running the ball, which is going to work out. UTEP just blew a game in the final seconds. And whether they get this 2-point conversion or not doesn't really matter. The Miners would have to return this kickoff for a touchdown. He swarmed. And UTEP has lost another game. I don't know what the counter's at for them by now, but it has got to be getting up there. And if any of these teams on the West Coast want to get over to the East Coast, they have to go through either UTEP or Wyoming. The states are literally separated by 2 schools. And there's no way North Texas is attacking the Miners. This is ridiculous. They're just getting chance after chance. I'm not sure why I even expected the Miners to be competitive in this game. They let the Mean Green put up as many points as they wanted. And they had a running back go off as well. We've now hit the top 50, and there are clearly some schools that are much bigger losers than others. But whether they've lost a ton of games, only one, or they haven't even had a chance yet, they're still a part of this map. We are one step closer to knowing who the biggest loser in college football is. And UMass has a chance to claim land here or attack, I think. Well, of course it worked out this way. The one spot that it couldn't point for them to not have to attack, that's where it pointed. And Boston College has an easy out if they ever get to attack them. As for Texas State, I don't think they've done anything, but they're about to play Rice, who has definitely lost a few. It would stink if they had to take over all that territory from them. And we're about to see what the Owls are really capable of. They've been given an opportunity, down by 4 with the ball, with about 45 seconds left now. Great play from EJ Warner to get them the first, plus a lot more. He was able to turn nothing into something, and now he's going to find his drag route for another first down. They're also going to use their final timeout, and this is where Texas State should be a little bit worried, though. If they could get a sack or something, they'd be fine. On 2nd and goal, EJ Warner has a pretty clean pocket, and he still throws it straight to him. So Rice really doesn't deserve to win. Add that to the list of the games that they are incapable of having success in. And eventually, the wheel might not be as favorable to giving them all of these matchups. For UMass, though, they are getting landed on a second time. And there's no out. They're going to have to take on Boston College. Whoever loses this rivalry will most likely be around until the top 10 at least. And I think this might actually be the earliest that Boston College has ever gotten out of Imperialism. UMass is going to take over their position of being far away from most colleges. And that is really not good news for them. Marshall is what I thought that wheel was going to get to. I can kind of tell where it's going by this point. I've been doing this for a long time. And either them or James Madison is about to get out. We got ourselves a little Sunbelt matchup, but it wasn't a very interesting game. Marshall really struggled to score points. And we can add that to the long list of blowouts that we have seen so far. There's probably a good amount of teams still on the wheel that are too good to be there. Though I don't know what to think about Charlotte football. I'm pretty sure they're not great. Between them and Wake Forest, one of them's about to escape North Carolina. But let's not forget, the Demon Deacons lost to East Carolina. They had a bad showing against them. They're also having one here. But fortunately, their defense has played incredibly, holding Charlotte to just 3 points. And they're also going to cause a fumble here to get it back. I don't know how Wake Forest just won only hitting field goals, but they did. And I was looking forward to seeing what Charlotte could have done on that drive until they messed up the first play. The number of Power 4 schools still on the wheel is definitely dwindling down. And Washington needed to get landed on like that so bad for where they're located. Either them or Boise State can get out now. And it'll be taking place on the Smurf field. The home field advantage didn't do much for the Broncos though. They just couldn't score enough points, or really they gave up 38. That's a bigger problem too. On the final play, you can't get 10 out of this. It's another turnover, and the Huskies have escaped. Luckily for Boise State, though, there's still schools like Wyoming and UTEP that are going to be near them out west. And I guess I can't forget about Nevada. They haven't been doing too well either. Over on the east side of the map, which is normally how this works out, is where there's still a ton of teams. And Georgia Southern, we have seen them lose time and time again. But maybe against FAU, they're going to be able to break that streak. Whenever you compare these two teams on paper, they are pretty similar. And that's why I cannot believe they gave up 41 points points while only scoring 6. FAU looked horrible. They just made this quarterback, JC French, look incredible, who's been struggling this whole video. And the Owls might be a pretty easy win for both USF and Miami to pick up since those schools are still on the map. Their problem is going to be getting landed on in the first place though. We're going back out west. And I know that there are a ton of small schools currently surrounding Cal. Between them and San Jose State, one of them's about to get out. And I'm surprised this Bay Area matchup's not even considered a rivalry. I guess if it's not going to be a close game though, I can kind of see why it's not considered one. And this is Cal's backup running back, winning player of the game. That's how bad they destroyed them. Jaden Ott didn't even have to play in the second half. So that's going to leave the northwest corner of the map just covered in blue schools. We might not be back to that portion of the United States for a while. There's just a low chance of a team from out there getting landed on. And I think this is where Syracuse gets to make their exit. They get to host Buffalo, who has a 67 overall offense. And the Bulls were pretty solid on one side of the ball, but they just haven't been able to score enough points to keep this close. Syracuse was able to double their score, and that's going to fill this Northeast region with a lot of weak teams besides Pittsburgh. They've been pretty unlucky to still be in this, but they haven't played anybody besides West Virginia. And South Alabama has gotten that opportunity with a chance for another. This time around, they're going to be attacking Troy, an in-state rivalry between schools that have not been good. And the Jaguars could have given us a really interesting matchup, but instead they got given the bill, only scoring 13 points. By now, they have clearly solidified themselves as a team that will most likely be here near the end. And if we zoom out on the map of top 40 teams, I think there's only 10 on here that still haven't played. For still having that many colleges left in Imperialism, that's not that many that haven't gotten to do anything. And the teams out west are just going to continue to thin each other out. Whenever it comes to this arrow, I think it is literally just going to pass by the Nevada territory and then hit Boise State. But that was such a close call, it could have gone either way. And I'm sure Boise State appreciates it pointing towards them because they were able to win. No more worries for the Broncos. They're not going to be in the running to be the worst team in college football 25. And there are so few teams that are still out west. We are going to Western Michigan though. That is not out west, even though it is in their name. It's up in Michigan. And if another directional school beats Michigan State, I don't think I'm going to know what to do. There's just no way that all three of them get a piece of the Spartans. And they are actually in a tie game with a minute left. I feel like it's been a long time since we've hopped into one to see a tied up finish, but Western Michigan wins with a field goal. And they just got themselves a lot closer to that range. What is their quarterback speed? Hayden Wolf is out there looking slow as molasses, but he should be able to complete this. And it looks like they're trying to run down the clock before kicking a field goal. I don't know what they're doing right now. Call a timeout or something. This is the final play of the game. They thought they were out of field goal range. We're going to overtime. I really feel like they missed out on an opportunity there. But at the same time, they've started their first drive really strong as they should be able to punch it in. Now is not the time to come up short. This was a great play call. But the Spartans responded back with a touchdown of their own, and on their next drive, they're coming close to getting another. They really just need to get this 3rd and 4 to go their way. I saw someone open underneath. He finally found him. And Aiden Childs is having plenty of success, but he got held up here. It's safe to assume they're eventually going to get in, but they can't again. And surely they will punch it in on 3rd and goal, which they do. If they didn't, they probably would have kicked 3. And Michigan State would also love to have this 2-point conversion, but Aiden Childs doesn't get it out. Western Michigan knows exactly what it's going to take to win this game. They're going to get their touchdown here, and a 2-point conversion really does it. The Broncos could be the last directional school in Michigan to take down the Spartans, but they took too long to throw. And so we're going to get alternating 2-point conversions. Starting with the Broncos, it looks like they're going to hand it off. That was not smart. Michigan State was all over it. They go with the halfback toss, and they can't pick it up either. This is ridiculous. The Spartans do not deserve to win this game, but they're about to convert here. It pops out. It's intercepted. If they return this all the way back, this could be a crazy way to win the game, but Aiden Childs is definitely chasing him down. And maybe they'll lock it up right here. They're throwing, slants open, it's caught, and Western Michigan has done it. What is going on with Michigan State? They have really underperformed in this Imperialism. You would think by now they would have been able to get out with the teams they've been playing, but they have simply not been moving the ball well at all, and it looks like Georgia Tech is going to play. It almost landed on FAU, but it went right over them. And this arrow was also almost directed down towards FAU, but it's going to hit South Alabama's land instead. The Owls could use as many opportunities as possible to win, so that hurts them. And unfortunately for South Alabama, they also need a lot of chances. Once we get to the end of this video, we're going to be witnessing some atrocious football. And I can't believe a couple of these colleges haven't figured out how to win once. There's the spin that LSU has been waiting for, though. They're getting to play again. And the only way they can head in this direction is if they face Rice. I highly doubt EJ Warner has this in him to pull this off. And I'll show a bit of respect. He was able to score 23 points. But LSU put up 35. If they can stop him on 4th 8, this one is gonna be over, and it looks like that is swatted. Now, there was a flag against the Tigers, but with the rest of time remaining, Rice was only able to move it about another 10 yards, and they throw a pick on the final play of the game anyway. It was still a competitive showing for them, which is good. It should give off a little hope that they won't be the last team standing in this video, but they are definitely near the bottom of Division 1 FBS football from what we've seen. FAU is no better either. They've been another one struggling, and they probably wouldn't beat Miami, but they might stand a chance against the Bulls. They're only going to be a 1 overall underdog, and I feel embarrassed for USF right now. I know I left Tampa to come back to Kentucky, but I will always want to see them doing well, and the fact that they're down by 10 is gross. Byron Brown was healthy. They should have never lost this game, but they did. USF and Miami are the two teams that are remaining in the state of Florida, and by now the Hurricanes have to be super hopeful that they can just get landed on. Meanwhile, San Jose State has been so lucky when it comes to the wheel, and only one of these two Mountain West teams is going to make it through this round. Nevada's had multiple heartbreaking overtime losses, and they're going to need a lot of help if they're going to find themselves taking down the Spartans. That touchdown puts them back within 7, and the onside kick is the real deciding factor that the Spartans just scooped up. At least Nevada didn't find a way to send it to overtime just to lose in a heartbreaking fashion, because we know how that would have unfolded. There's a reason they have as much territory as they do. In fact, I think they're up to number 2 in the entire United States. Them, Wyoming, and UTEP have been the top 3 for a bit, and if any of that's going to change, a lot needs to go differently out east. Here's a new team though that hasn't played yet, Arkansas State, and they were so close to having to face Memphis, but instead it's South Alabama. I know. How many more times are the Jaguars going to find themselves in this situation? You would think by now they would have found a way to just win one of these games, but they haven't, and with a minute left in this one, they're trailing by 4 points. They're going to have to put together a touchdown drive against the Red Wolves, and I just can't stand how bad the computer's time management is sometimes. They still have all of their timeouts. They let it run down to 15 seconds, and they're on a 4th and 4. Now, I do notice that Arkansas State is pressing. It just worked for them. They didn't let anybody beat them deep, and that's how they're going to take down the Jaguars. RBT would be so disappointed in how his school is playing by now, and if South Alabama didn't have so many schools that kept on attacking them, I'd have them as one of the favorites to make it to the end. Depending on where this arrow lands, even USF could be playing on, but instead, with it pointing out east, Miami is clearly the closest school. This is where the Hurricanes can redeem themselves for that missed field goal. And by now, we just gotta talk about how some of these sim results make no sense, though Miami has beaten the press on their first play against USF, and they're gonna take the lead with a touchdown. They were trailing by 3 up until this moment, and it was looking like the Hurricanes were gonna have to stay in Imperialism. But no, USF ruined their chances at pulling off the upset unless they can somehow make up for it. That'll take them near midfield. Byron Brown is about to have to make this throw under pressure though, and on 2nd and 10, Miami sends 4, which is not enough to stop them. They were not able to get in fast enough. Byron Brown, standing tall, is going to sling it towards the end zone. USF makes the catch, and the Hurricanes are about to lose another heartbreaker. Cam Ward better have a miracle plan for this moment if he wants the Hurricanes to be able to get out against USF, or else they're going to be in this Imperialism for even longer. And what was that throw from him? I can't believe the Hurricanes have now lost to 2 inferior teams, but they have, and let's not act like they didn't have all of the opportunities to win that. Their defense couldn't clutch up. Miami remains the sole team at the bottom of Florida, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's a while before we see them play. For example, Bowling Green has been waiting around for forever now, and they're just now getting another game where they have to face Toledo. Their first one was against Ohio State. They were not going to win, but they could win the Battle of I-75. For a moment, it looked like Bowling Green was going to be the one that won this game. They have the ball back now, but they gave up a touchdown to Toledo just seconds ago, and to follow their timeout, Connor Bazelak gets them another first. He seems to be having a lot of success here at the end of the game. 3 completions in a row. They're running for a lot after the catch. I mean, that's the best tight end in the country. Besides maybe Tyler Warren, it's debatable. And there's still 24 seconds left for Bowling Green to get into the end zone. It just stinks that they've now used all their timeouts. That sack from Toledo is really going to help them clutch up. They're teabagging their quarterback, and them not allowing Connor Bazelak to get up made that the final play of the game. That was an interesting way for Toledo to secure that one. It worked out. And I'm sure that Michigan State is fine about having Bowling Green on their border. Shouldn't be too hard of a game. That is, if they get to play them. Iowa has done nothing so far, but if they happen to lose to Wyoming, they would jump up to the biggest territory. But they should be okay. They have a 92 overall defense versus a 71 overall offense. The result of that matchup was Wyoming only scoring 3 points against Iowa. And behind Caleb Johnson, the Hawkeyes looked incredible. What it's going to do is add on a little bit more land for Wyoming, but that really doesn't make much of a difference to them. It looks like Kansas State will be playing. They've already lost 1 game in this Imperialism, but the Jayhawks have not played. I'm sure they were hoping to here, but instead the Wildcats are attacking UTEP. And there is no way this is the one the Miners end up coming out on top of. Sure enough though, UTEP finds themselves in this one with 38 seconds left, just getting back the ball. And they had to use all their timeouts to do so, which is going to make it really hard for them to win this game. game, but this is one of the only ones they've kept competitive. I just don't understand the sim system. It can give you some pretty random results sometimes, but that's what makes these videos interesting. And UTEP's gonna do it. They've beat Kansas State deep. I don't know how the Wildcats just gave up a touchdown there. They did what Miami did. And I was honestly just assuming they'd mess up the final few plays, we'd call it a day. This might go as the most shocking result of anything that we've seen so far. How is this happening? Kansas State was a pretty good team this year. UTEP has lost like 10 matchups at this point, and Avery Johnson's going down. The Miners actually did it. They beat the Wildcats. That is going to leave Kansas State with territory literally all over the United States. And I feel like schools like UCLA were pretty happy with how things were looking until that result. That alone could really switch up how things end up finishing out for us here. And Miami was so close to getting that opportunity to attack, but instead it's Memphis. They're going to be facing South Alabama, who we know is struggle. And I don't know how many more times the Jaguars can handle losing. However, Memphis went out. They only scored 7 points in the fourth quarter. They give up 35 to South Alabama. And from what we have witnessed, that makes no sense. I don't see how that's the game where they figured out how to win, but they finally played well. And that is now back-to-back very interesting results. Maybe Louisiana Tech will get one too. I can't quite remember who is even around them. I'm pretty sure Memphis is. But they won't be facing the Tigers. They're going to be facing Rice. We have said a lot of things about the Owls in this video, but they're not going to be as lucky as South Alabama. They find themselves down by 14 with 15 seconds left in this game. No matter what happens on this 3rd and 7, they're not going to win, especially if Louisiana Tech is going to pick them off. And that means they're still on the fast track to making it all the way to the end. There was simply no way that we were going to lose UTEP, South Alabama, and Rice in back-to-back-to-back matchups. The odds of that would have to be astronomically low, and Old Dominion is getting their chance. They're one of those teams that have made it all the way to the end without doing anything. And either them or Charlotte is about to go home. Despite them not normally sharing a border or anything, this is a rivalry. And that does not mean that we're going to get a competitive matchup. 35-7, it's the same score as when South Alabama was able to win. This one is far less shocking though. I could actually see this happening. And Old Dominion has picked a bad time to start picking up some land. They made it way too far without ever getting landed on like Pittsburgh has. The Panthers have only gotten to play once, but now they get to face Akron. It's even been a while since the Zips last took the field, and they did not come prepared. It was 24-3 up until like the final 2 minutes. So after waiting quite a while, the Panthers have been able to make their exit. Back to the wheel, we are getting closer and closer to having a top 25, and UMass might be a part of it unless they can pull off a win. They aren't going to be claiming extra territory here. No, they're going to be playing Buffalo, and this is an extremely winnable game for both of these teams. I guess UMass just seized the opportunity way more. It took Buffalo a long time to get their offense going in this one, and I never like it when we get all these blowouts. I appreciate the close finishes. I appreciate when there's drama, but that can't be every game, and if your team is still on the map, they have made it to the top 25 of loser Imperialism. Some of the names on this wheel should 100% not still be here, and Vanderbilt's going to do their best to get off of it now. It'll be either them or Purdue. It's between two Power 4 programs, but both have had their struggles in recent memory, even if the Commodores are getting a bit better. That's been enough to give themselves an 8-point lead with a minute left, and we will see what the Boilermakers can do with this much time remaining. I would assume not much, but what a throw from Hudson Card. With no timeouts, they're not going to be able to stop the clock. So by the time that they run up to the line and they spike it, another 15 seconds is gone, and that's going to leave them very little room for error. They need to be able to get out of bounds. They're throwing towards the sideline at least. It just wasn't open. Vanderbilt should learn from some of the other teams that we've seen in these situations. You do not want to press, and as long as you don't do that, you should be okay, which is why I'm pretty confident that they're going to wrap it up on this play. The check down won't even get them to the marker, and Purdue is going to find themselves losing another one. That's just going to increase their odds of getting attacked though, since a couple more schools are touching them. And so even if there's not that many teams left, I don't think they're in a bad spot right now. TCU, on the other hand, might be, depending on where this points. If it's headed down, they can't face Kansas State. It's going to be Rice, and one of these days they are not going to lose. This game is going to unfortunately be another one they can't come out on top of though, unless they miraculously score a touchdown on this play, but they're just going to take a sack. Rice did their best, but beating TCU after all the other teams that they couldn't beat was going to be a challenge, and it's gotten to the point where there is so few teams that still surround them. Their odds of getting attacked now are so low that they almost need to be landed on to have that chance, and it's going to go to Purdue, who is going to be headed to the west. I just realized that Illinois hasn't even played yet, but they finally get to, Purdue, it's in the battle for the Purdue Cannon, and they had absolutely no interest in making this a competitive matchup. The Fighting Illini had a freshman receiver make a statement, and Purdue will go on to pick up a little bit more territory. The number of teams remaining just continues to dwindle on down, and NC State has done nothing this entire video. Neither is Coastal, but with them attacking in this direction, they're the closest school. And these have to be two of the final schools that still haven't played. It's not going to be too exciting because Coastal only scored 10 points. But what that should mean is if Old Dominion and Coastal end up matching up, that could be competitive. And I'm just hoping that we're trading blowouts now for better games in the future. There's the wheel selecting Kansas. They've also had to do nothing. But if they don't beat the rivals Kansas State, they're about to have everything. We all know that the Wildcats picked up a lot of land recently, and I feel like their defense has been consistently letting them down. They should have never lost to UTEP. They have all three of their timeouts trailing by 2 possessions in the final couple seconds, and Avery Johnson can't do anything. To still be in it, they should have attempted a long field goal here, but instead they're just going to chuck it up one final time. Kansas is going to beat Kansas State, and I don't care if there was a flag on this play. It's not going to matter. Either way, the game's going to end 38-27, and if you're a Kansas State fan, I cannot imagine that you thought your team would be in this position. But there they are with the third biggest territory in the United States in the top 20. There's honestly more Power 4 teams remaining at this point than I thought there would be, and it's going to be really interesting to see how all of this unfolds. Purdue is going to keep on getting chances. Eventually they'll win. They're in the middle of it all, which is why I don't see them sticking around for much longer. It looks like Appalachian State's going to have their number though, because Purdue finds themselves down by 2 possessions in the final seconds. I don't even care that they were able to come away with this touchdown catch. They're still going to need to recover an onside kick, making it hard to come back. If they can pick this up though, they only need a field goal to send it to overtime, and that was almost in a perfect spot for them. It's not going to do the trick though. Appalachian State closes it out, and it feels like Purdue's lost just as many games as some of these other small schools. They are really playing bad at the moment. We are going to be headed to Memphis, and it's important to note they are also bordering the Boilermakers. They could have faced somebody like Rice, but the arrow is pointing straight towards Purdue territory, and that's why I said eventually they have to win one of these. That's why it only makes sense this one went to overtime. Both of these teams have had some pitiful performances, but one of the two of them is about to get out, and Memphis is off to a good start. They really just need Seth Hennigan to keep the interceptions to himself. He's already got 2 in this game, and they're going to the end zone, but they can't bring it in. That makes it 3rd and 10. They're probably going to have to settle for a field goal unless they can make something happen, and they have set up the Boilermakers to take a win. Purdue's first play is going to be a jet touch pass, getting out in space, getting 5, and then they're going with the handoff. They are not risking turnovers either. If they don't get this 3rd and 2, they're going to have to kick a field goal. We're going to double OT, unless Purdue is feeling aggressive. I'm starting to think that neither one of these teams deserves to get out, and it seems like the Boilermakers are going to go to the end zone where they actually score a touchdown. This is going to put some pressure on Memphis. We're getting something interesting, and we will see what happens with the 2-point conversion. Now Hudson Card fights his way in. As for Memphis, they are going to get a extremely clean pocket to only pick up 2 yards, and Seth Hennigan's going to need to look a little bit farther downfield. Whenever he does, they haven't caught it. That time though, his receiver made a tough play. It seems like with man-to-man coverage, someone is bound to get open, and we could be headed to alternating 2-point conversions. Memphis just needs to be able to get in right here. I'm not sure if Seth Hennigan really has anything. At least get the throw out, buddy. Don't hold on to it. And that is how Purdue is going to get their win. It was only a matter of time before it happened. Somebody had to go home, and just based off of where they're located, Memphis should still be able to get out. They have been fortunate enough to play in a lot of games so far. Marshall hasn't. They've only gotten a couple of opportunities, and this could go in so many directions. It's going to put them towards Virginia, one of the final schools that hasn't had to do a thing, and we'll see if they're prepared to take on the Thundering Herd. Well, this is just embarrassing for the Cavaliers. They let Marshall put up 38 while only scoring 10, and they also gave this guy 3 interceptions. They just kept handing the ball back to Marshall. They didn't deserve to win, and there's definitely going to be a Power 4 school that makes it all the way to the end. One of them's going to finish in the top 5. I can just tell by how things are shaping up, but Notre Dame most likely won't, since Bowling Green is attacking them. They are actually the final school that still hasn't had to play, and this is another one of those results I can't even explain. Notre Dame wasn't able to score a touchdown until the final 2 minutes, but they had the same problem that Virginia just did. They hadn't played, and then they didn't come out prepared. That cannot possibly be a thing. I'm doing all of this inside play now, but I don't know how to explain some of the results we've seen in the top 30. They don't make any sense. There's no point in even trying to guess who's gonna win. By the time that we sim to the end of the game, the score could literally be anything, and Temple might have finally found their way to get out of loser Imperialism. They have a 6-point lead on Buffalo in the final minute, and after wasting a lot of time spiking the ball, there's 40 seconds left on a 3rd and 6 that they aren't gonna complete. And so it all comes down to this. The Bulls are going to get it and then use their final timeout. Still 30 seconds left on the clock. They just need to complete these passes near the sideline, And because they didn't, there's now 6 seconds left. They're probably going to get off this one final Hail Mary. It'd be cool to see one of these completed and give a team a win. It just bounces around everywhere. Wait, no way he makes it all the way to the end zone. Okay, he doesn't. But that would have been a crazy way for this to finish. Temple is going to take the rivalry. They're going to get their win. And that's going to leave Buffalo with basically the entire Northeast region. They're in trouble. There's still a couple unclaimed states that could cause them to not have to attack. And Notre Dame has already been given their shot at redemption. Either them or Michigan State, probably the Irish, are about to get out. But these are two schools that have just struggled against MAC opponents. This is where it seems like Notre Dame has refigured things out though. They destroyed the Spartans. And they've completely redeemed themselves. They just went into Michigan State and casually put up 48 points. So I'm really starting to think that the Spartans could actually be the last team standing. With the wheel landing on Miami though, I think they're going to be able to survive because they're attacking up the coast and the closest to that is Coastal. The Hurricanes have already lost multiple games that they shouldn't have. Eventually, they're going to have a good performance and that's what they did against the Chancellors, 45-7. And it was their defense, not Cam Ward, that won player of the game. It makes such little sense that it took them that long to get off of the map. And these last few results have kind of stunk, but we still have UCLA, Kansas State, Memphis, Michigan State, and Virginia on the map. Those programs should not be in the top 13, but they are. They might make it all the way. And I am pretty certain that Old Dominion's surrounded by one team. I guess they could have gotten a couple other matchups, but they're going to face the Cavaliers. And this is to be the final team standing in the state of Virginia. Who wants it more? Neither team's offense, that's for sure. Because neither team has done more than kick some field goals. It is really sad when you think about it that through 4 quarters, that's all they've been able to do. But in overtime, the Cavaliers might be able to crack the end zone, and they still can't. I really have no faith that Virginia is going to be able to get into the end zone. I can see them kicking a field goal, but they actually held on. And how is Old Dominion going to respond back? With a touchdown on their first play. They couldn't do this throughout the entire game, and I wish they would have gone for the 2-point conversion. If they're able to score another touchdown, they're going to have to go for it on this drive anyway, and they just threw it straight to the Cavaliers. Unless Virginia really finds a way to mess this up, they're going to be able to get out of loser imperialism, even if they're not in. All it's going to take is a field goal or a touchdown, which they get here. And that does it. Virginia is able to take down the Monarchs. It should have never taken until overtime for those two teams to start scoring touchdowns, though. And with just 12 programs left, the next team that's attacking is Northern Illinois. It has been a while since they've gotten to do anything. And it's another closer call, but this is going to hit Wyoming's territory instead of Memphis's. This could be where the Cowboys are able to finally win. And what type of score are we even looking at in the final minute? The Huskies have only been able to score 5 points. 2 of them are going to come on a safety from their defense. And on 2nd and 10, they're getting a little bit of a play action mixed in there. They're going for a deep bomb. It's a one-on-one opportunity that no one comes down with. 3rd down now, same type of play. Same play exactly, actually. They're throwing it to the same receiver, and it almost got brought in. That bounce was so close to being helpful. And Northern Illinois better pick something up here. 10 yards is all they need, but they're going to get more than 10 yards. Wyoming has somehow given up something over the top of their defense. The Cowboys are seconds away from losing another. And they're definitely not going to run the ball with no timeouts left, but they take a sack. I'm not sure they're going to get another snap off. And they don't. They came so close to winning, but they couldn't finish the job. It's no one's fault other than themselves that they are going to be one of the biggest territories. And every team left on this map now has a pretty sizable amount of land. That typically does not happen in Imperialism. There's normally colleges that haven't had to play still. But this one has been different. This one has had a lot of crazy results. And with this arrow pointing north, we are immediately getting another game with NIU as a part of it. All they have to do is score more than 5 points. And sure enough, with a successful offense, they have a lead in the final 45 seconds. Their defense could still blow things for them though. They cannot let the Wolfpack get in field goal range. And I think Nevada would love to avoid overtime, so they need to get a touchdown. On 3rd and 10, Brendan Lewis, you've got to complete something. That's going to be an inbounds catch. They didn't get out of bounds. And that's going to get them down to just 10 seconds left in this game, but they throw it up. It's caught. And they're not out of bounds again. Never mind, they're saying that he did get there. Or maybe he didn't. The clock is running after it stopped for half a second, and that means that Nevada can't win. They were just one timeout away from getting their 3rd Imperialism overtime game. Not sure how it would have gone, but I'm sure they would have rather had that than controlling like half of the US. They have been a huge loser in this video. Rice isn't going to get this pick. It goes to Old Dominion, and they're going to be headed to the Southwest. That'll put out either them or Coastal Carolina. And these are the types of teams I was expecting to be here at the end. What should have been a good matchup, though, was not. Coastal Carolina obliterated Old Dominion. They held them to 0 points. And that's such a disappointing result because I felt like it had the potential to be good. There's lots of teams on this wheel I would consider some of the worst in the country, like Old Dominion. And then there's others like Kansas State where I'm confused how they're still in it. But the Wildcats stay in for a bit longer because the Monarchs are attacking up north. Buffalo should just be excited that they're even getting more action. And they seem to be handling it pretty well. But they're going to have to hold on in the final 25 seconds. Old Dominion still has all 3 of their timeouts left. And they need a touchdown to tie it. This could very easily turn into an overtime game, especially if they get a good release off of the line. But they throw it straight to the Bulls instead. And it's no wonder that the Monarchs have lost game after game recently. I saw somebody open on the other side of the field as well, but their quarterback didn't see that, and now they control the entire East Coast. When you zoom out, teams like Memphis are still in the middle of all the action. So theoretically, they shouldn't make it to the championship, if we can call it a championship. But they still have to get attacked for that to happen, and I don't know where this is going. I guess if Nevada's going to attack in this direction, it's got to be Kansas State, because they control this territory. Hawaii's out there. So that should give the Wildcats the out that they've been waiting for. I'm really starting to wonder what's going on with Kansas State though, because despite scoring 42 points, this one is not over in the final minute. They've also forced Brendan Lewis into 3 picks. But after all of that, Nevada is still in this game and they're looking to take a lead to win. All they have to do is pick up 29 yards in the next 45 seconds. But they just took a massive sack and then they were off target. If Brendan Lewis hits that pass, they have a first. And instead, it is 3rd and 16 where the Wildcats didn't get pressure in time. Hang on, it's not over. Nevada's going to have 4 chances at the end zone. If they take their check down here, that would keep the clock running. You just cannot take a sack. And on 2nd and goal, they did run it. By the time they spiked the ball, making it 4th and goal, this is their one chance to get in, but they're tackled short. And there is no way that that is how Kansas State is going to survive. Nevada has lost games in the most heartbreaking ways possible. And I genuinely don't understand how they keep on finding ways to mess things up. Of any team left on this wheel, they are by far the most deserving. Though Michigan State is up there as well. They should not still be in this. It looks like they might finally be able to make their exit though. They're playing at Akron. And I understand they've already lost to countless MAC schools, but how can you even defend losing to the Zips too? The Spartans might be the worst team I've ever seen in Sim. They're gonna have to score a touchdown on this play. They don't. It was 4th down. And they aren't coming back. They've lost to another small school. It should never have come to the point that it's now come to. But they are just 1 game away from making it to the top 5. And they've been gifted another opportunity to pick up a win. Of course, the wheel would put Michigan State up against Memphis, though, 2 of the bigger schools left. And that's a little disappointing, but if we want to find the real worst team in the country, it needed to happen. Just like Michigan State's last performance, this one's not any better. They save all their timeouts until the very end, trailing by 2 possessions, and they don't do anything. If they want to even have a little bit of hope, they would need to score a touchdown right here, and they gave themselves a chance. But they couldn't make the catch, and now there's not enough time left to come back down 14. It doesn't matter what the flag is, you just can't play that bad for most of the game. And that loss is at least a little bit understandable, but Memphis has also had their moments of struggle. Either way, the Spartans are in a pretty good spot. They're going to have to play in a couple of matchups if they were to lose at all. They separate Old Dominion from everybody else, and it's going back over to the west. I think Nevada has to run into either UCLA or Rice, but this arrow pointed nowhere near any of them, so what they're going to have to do is attack the closest school, the Bruins. This is another Big Ten team that should not be near the finale. They are also not playing great football. They are only scoring 16 points on Nevada, given the Wolfpack hope that they've had before. And their quarterback, Justin Martin, has thrown 3 interceptions in this game. They still have 50 seconds to get into the end zone though and to get that win. So I'm thinking the Bruins might be able to pull that off, and that was a good throw. He put it right into the window it needed to be in. It just couldn't be caught. Now they're taking a sack. And I don't want to get too excited for Nevada because I feel like they've had false hope a lot. This would be the most heartbreaking way to lose out of all of them though. It is a 4th and 18 with about 10 seconds left. There's no way. I thought they burnt them. Nevada's actually going to do it though. It has taken them ages, but they have picked up a win. And that's going to leave UCLA with most of the United States. They shouldn't be here either. According to this Imperialism though, these are the 4 worst teams in the country. And Rice is going to have to play one of the 2 Big Ten schools. That arrow was going to point them up towards the Bruins. And for being an 80 overall as a smaller school, I feel like they shouldn't have made it this far. There were definitely a lot worse teams in the country than these 2. But we have trusted the Imperialism process. It's gotten us to this moment with a minute left where UCLA UCLA could have picked it, and that would have gotten them their win, ending the game. Instead, on 3rd and 2, Rice is going to shed a tackle after almost losing some yards. Is EJ Warner going to finally do it? Is he going to get his team a win? He's getting them inside the 10, but they could be taking timeouts too soon. We've seen some crazy stuff in Imperialism. I would not want to leave 30 seconds left on the clock, but just the fact that Rice has a lead is a huge deal for them. I really don't know how UCLA is going to be able to make up for this, but Ethan Garbers is out there on the field, so that means he was injured against Nevada, which makes sense why they lost to them. I just can't think of a reason they should be struggling against Rice. 2nd and 10 gets them to midfield, not out of bounds, and their timeouts have dwindled down to just one. It's very crucial Rice does not press. However, they've come out on this next one with a couple guys up farther than I would have felt comfortable with. They aren't getting much more, and at the very least, it seems like the Bruins are going to have a couple of Hail Mary opportunities. They wanted to get it a little bit closer. They should have gone for some deeper passes, but because they didn't, it all comes down to this: everybody running to one spot on the field that is overthrown, and we have actually witnessed Rice picking up a win. It took EJ Warner having the best game that he's had all video, but he did it, and no matter what, there's going to be a Big Ten team that's in the loser Imperialism Championship. I'm not sure which one. It'll really depend where this wheel lands, and Michigan State could go in either direction. They're headed up towards Old Dominion. Even if it's not pointed directly at them, UCLA is on the other side of the map, and I want to say it's not looking too good for the Monarchs, but these bigger schools have lost to teams they shouldn't have already. They could also go out versus Old Dominion and not perform, and I really don't even know what to say about this result. Old Dominion scored 34. The Spartans were only able to come up with 10 points, and they got beat by a freshman quarterback that has had zero success so far. Whatever teams you thought would be here by the end of this video, I can guarantee that it was not between these two. But does that mean my method of trying to find the worst team in the country is incorrect? I don't think so. This is just how it happened to work out. Michigan State lost to plenty of teams they shouldn't have, and now they are the ones on the attack trying to beat the Bruins, so they aren't the worst team in the country. These teams come in as an 82 and an 84 overall, but they are the final two standing, competing to not be the worst team in the country. Apparently, that's all it takes for Michigan State's offense to come alive. They currently have a lead, but they're pressing, giving up a touchdown to the Bruins that's going to put them in front with 2.5 minutes left. I feel like the Spartans have self-destructed so many times, and I'm interested to see how Aiden Childs responds back to UCLA. He has 2.5 minutes to work with. They aren't going to run the ball at all with Nate Carter. He's thrown it deep, and for a split second, it looked like that was intercepted, but they couldn't come down with it. He takes a sack. Now, here's the thing. They're in a tough position. They have to go for it, and if they don't pick this up, they could still hold UCLA to a field goal, but they are going to pick it up. They're going to get more than just the first down. It looks like they're going to make it all the way to the end zone. Do either of these teams want to actually win? I feel like they've made it this far in Imperialism, and they've just decided it would be cool to win one, and the 2-point conversion puts them up by 3. This one's back in the hands of Ethan Garbers. Michigan State is not pressing this time around, so they've learned. They're just going to need their defense to do something impressive here, and they weren't on that pass. They've given up almost 350 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. It's been an extremely long day for them, and there's no way they just did it again. These guys are getting outrun by every receiver in their room. That's going to leave Aiden Childs with just a minute to score a touchdown, and he's already gotten them 10 yards, picking up another 10 here. But they're going to run out of timeouts soon, so if nobody's open, you have to throw it away. That is exactly what he did there. Taking the short underneath is going to help out, and on 3rd and 2, they've been able to get up to the line with about 40 seconds left where they're past midfield. There goes the final timeout, though. And what does UCLA come out doing? They are somewhat pressing, but there are no streaks for them to get open with, and the 5-yard completion is going to milk some more time. Michigan State is going to need a miracle. It looks like he's throwing to nobody, and this is literally it for the Spartans. I guess that he's just going to take a sack. So after days of filming, Michigan State is going to finish as the worst team. They gave up over 400 passing yards, 5 touchdowns to Ethan Garbers, and the Spartans lost too many games in this video for me to feel bad for them. They deserve to lose. That's going to do it, though. This might be the last Imperialism I do on College Football 25. If you want to see another one before the new game drops, make sure to hit the like button on this video and check out some of my other content too.